Hello guys, my name is Prince and this is Math Center. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Post your comments and questions on my social media handles and I'll respond to it. The topic we are treating today is algebraic expressions. This is the third video on the topic. In the previous video, we learned how to add and subtract algebraic expressions. In this video, we are going to learn how to multiply and divide algebraic expressions. Now, multiplication and division of algebraic expressions. To multiply algebraic expressions, 1. Group the coefficients and variables. So when the expression is given to us, all that we need to do is to first group the coefficients and variables. Now, what does that mean? If you have the expression 3x times 2x, when we group the coefficients and variables, we are going to have 3 times 2 times x times x. Remember, in the first video, we said that the expression 3x is the same as 3 times x. And the expression 2y is the same as 2 times y. So we already have the multiplication here. So times. So 3x times 2y is the same as 3 times x times 2 times y. So all we need to do is to group the coefficients and the variable. So we group the coefficients 2 and 3. We send them to one side. Then x and y, we group those ones also. Now, after you've done that, the next thing you need to do is to multiply the coefficients. So you multiply 2 by 3. You multiply the numbers in there. So we know that 2 times 3 will give us 6. Then we have the x and the y. Then from there, you multiply the variables using the rules of indices. So if you watch the video on indices, you will see that if you multiply x by y, you are going to get xy. So our final answer is going to give us 6xy. Remember, 6xy is the same as 6 times x times y. In the first video, we said that we do not write multiplications and divisions in algebraic expressions. So usually 6 times x times y is written as 6xy. The rules for division also follows the same as the rules for multiplication. So let's take some examples on this and become conversant with it. So the question says that we should multiply or divide the following expressions. So where is multiplication, we are going to do that, and where is division, we are going to do that. So we begin with the first one. We have 4y times 2x. Just as we did in the previous slide, first we will group the coefficients and the variables. So in doing that, we are going to get 4 times 2 times y times x. Then the next step is that we have to multiply the coefficients. So we multiply the numbers. 4 times 2 will give us 8. So we do that. So we are going to get 8 times x times y. Now we've changed the position of x and y because we said in the first video that when there are variables in an algebraic expressions, the numbers must come first, then the letters will follow, or the variables will follow in alphabetical order. And we know that x comes before y, so you are going to get x times y. Now when we multiply that, we are going to get 8xy. So we multiply x and y using the laws of indices. When we do that, x times y is given as sy. So 8 times sy is given as 8sy. Let's take the next example. 12 times 12xy times 3by. So once again, the first thing we need to do is to group the coefficients and the variables. So in grouping the coefficients and the variables, 12xy times 3by will be equal to 12 times 3. Then the variables will come. So x times y times b. Now we can see from here that we have 12 times x, and the 12 was obtained from here, the 3 was also obtained, 12 times 3, sorry, the 12 was obtained from here, and the 3 was also obtained from here. Then we have x. There is only one x in this expression, so times x. We have y times y because we have y here and y here. Then there is only one b, so times b. So the next step is to multiply the coefficients or the numbers. So we have 12 times 3, and we know 12 times 3 will give us 36. Now remember, since there are variables or letters, we list them in alphabetical order. So b must come first, then x and y. Now when we are multiplying y by y, the laws of indices tells us that if you multiply y by y, we are going to get y squared. To understand this in details, please watch the videos on indices and you get that. So 3 times b times x times y squared. So we can see from here that if we are multiplying this, we are now going to get 36b x y squared. So y times y will give us y squared. B times x times y squared times 36. We are going to get 36bs y squared. In the first video, we said that when there are numbers and variables, the numbers will come first, then the variables will follow in alphabetical order. Let's take the third example. We have 3h squared times k squared times 3. So what we have to do here is that once again we group the variables and the coefficients. The coefficients are 3 and 3, so we have 3 times 3, then times the variables are a squared and k squared. So from here we multiply the coefficients. So 3 times 3 will give us 9. Now times h squared times k squared. So we are going to get 9h squared k squared. So if you follow the laws of indices, we will see that multiplying a squared by k squared will give us h squared k squared. We multiply that by 9 and we are getting 9h squared k squared. The fourth example, we have minus 3xy times 2y. So once again, we group the coefficients and the variables. So grouping the coefficients, we are going to get minus 2 times 2. The variables, we have x, there's only one x, then we have 2 of the y, so y times y. We've seen that if you multiply y by y, you are going to get y squared. So to begin with, we are going to multiply minus 3 by 2. Minus 3 times 2 give us minus 6. So times x times y squared. So minus 6 times x times y squared is giving us minus 6sy squared. Let's take an example on division. The division of algebraic expressions also follows the same step as that. So just as we grouped the coefficients and variables, in division we are going to do the same thing. But this time we are going to divide like terms. We are going to divide terms with the same letters or variables. So we are going to divide terms with the same letters or variables. So we can see in this question that we have coefficients 30 and minus 5. So we group that. Then we also group terms with the same letters. So we have x here, we have x here. So we group that. We have y here, we have y here. So we group that. So in grouping that, we are going to get this. So we are going to have 30 divided by minus 5. So the numbers have been grouped, or the coefficients have been grouped. Then times, we group the letters or variables with the same letters. So we have x here, we have x here. The x on the numerator side is s to the power minus 5. So you have s to the power minus 5 divided by x to the power you have s to the power 5 divided by x to the power 3, then times y to the power 3 divided by y to the power 2. So you perform this operation using the laws of indices. We know that 30 divided by minus 5 will give us minus 6. From the laws of indices, x raised to the power 5 divided by x raised to the power 3 will give us x raised to the power 2. In the laws of indices, we said that when numbers are having the same basis, all that you need to do is to subtract the exponents. So if they have the same basis, you subtract the exponent. So since the base here is x and the base here is also x, what we have to do is to subtract the exponent. So you pick one of the bases, which is x, and you subtract the exponent. So we have 5 minus 3, and that is giving us 2. Then y exponent 3 divided by y exponent 2. So they also have the same basis. So you pick one of the bases, y, then you subtract the exponents. 3 minus 2. Remember that 3 minus 2 is 1. Y exponent 1 is the same as y. So if you watch the video on indices, you are going to understand how these computations were done. So from here we have minus 6 times s squared times y. So minus 6 times s squared times y will give us minus 6 s squared y. Let's take another example on division. We have 64xy divided by 8y. So to make the division simpler, we write it in this form: 64xy over 8y. So just as we did for the example above, we first group the coefficients. So we have 64 divided by 8. You group that on one side. Now times x. The x is only on the numerator part. There is no denominator. So in natural sense, it's going to be x over 1, which is the same as x. Times, we group the y's. So we have y over y. Now let's proceed. We know that 64 divided by 8 will give us 8. We already have times x here. We know that y divided by y will give us 1. So we are going to have 8 times x times 1. Now 8 times x times 1 will give us 8x, because 8 times 1 is 8. So we are going to have 8 times x, which is 8x. So when dividing, group the variables and the coefficients, then divide the coefficients and use the laws of indices to divide the variables. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to understand this into details, please watch the video on indices and see how to divide variables. Take more examples. If you need any help, interact with me on my social media handles, and I'm going to help you to understand it into details. See you in the next video, where we will learn how to multiply algebraic expressions that involve brackets. Bye bye.